That was weird. Just gonna head off to work now. Let's talk about homesteading when you have a full-time job. I woke up super early this morning to get a really cool time lapse, and this is what I get: fog. We can't all be farmers. The fact of the matter is that as much as all of us want to grow our own food and provide for our families and be totally self-sufficient, we probably aren't going to be able to do that. Most of us are going to have a full-time job, a commute, but that doesn't mean you can't homestead. In today's video I have 5 tips that are going to help you homestead even if you have a full-time job. So let's dive into this. First, let's talk about your actual job. Back when we started homesteading, I worked in construction. It was a physically demanding job. I also had to commute to work each day, so that affected our homesteading. And I had to work long hours if I was going to make good money. And so it meant I was away from home a lot. The best case scenario for your employment is to have a job that's not physically demanding, that doesn't involve a commute, you don't get paid by the hour. Now if you work in construction or you have a commute and you can't work from home, don't let that discourage you. You can still homestead. I did it for like 3 years. So you already have your career, but you haven't yet purchased a homestead. If that's the case for you, try to find a homestead that's not too far from your place of occupation. If you generally work at one location, or maybe you're like a contractor and a couple different towns is where you usually work, make sure to find a homestead where at most you have a half-hour commute. An hour is okay. I used to drive sometimes 2 hours both ways for work when we were working in the southern part of the state, and that left me no time and no energy to do any homesteading. So the shorter your commute to work, the more you'll be able to do actually homesteading. Come on now, chickies. When you homestead with a full-time job, early mornings are your friend. Your boss owns you from 7 to 4 or whatever the time is. What you do at 6 or 5 or 4 a.m., that's all your time. When I started homesteading, I would wake up each day about 4:30 or 5, have a quick breakfast, a cup of coffee, get ready for the day, and then I'd be out here from about 5:30 till 6:30. And obviously that means most of your homesteading you're going to want to do late in spring, summer, maybe early fall. That way you're getting the most light in those early mornings. When you're planning your homestead, think about doing things that you only have to do spring, summer, and maybe fall. So that's, gardening, meat, livestock. The animals that take a lot of care year round are not good fits because in the wintertime you won't have any daylight to care for those animals. Good girl. Want a nice scratch? Want a nice scratch? If you're gonna homestead while you have a full-time job, then you should be a little bit more selective in what plants or animals or projects you decide to do on your homestead. Not all are a good fit for someone who has a 9 to 5. Think about growing plants or raising animals that don't have very time-sensitive needs. So what do I mean by that? Think about this cow I have behind me. She needs to be milked every day. Now maybe you have a full-time job, but you could wake up early in the morning and milk her every day and take care of that. And you think, hey, I could get a cow. The routine every morning would be the same. Well, that's true, but you have to think about other things. Like, for example, if you're going to have a dairy cow, that means she has to be bred when she's in heat, not when your boss lets you have time off to have her bred. Once she's bred, you know what comes next, a birth. And you don't know when that's gonna happen. If you have a 9 to 5, can you afford to take an entire week off of work waiting for her to have a baby when she's ready? Dairy animals might not be a great fit for someone with a full-time job, especially if they can't work from home. With plants, most plants will work for any homesteader. A lot of fruit trees and berry bushes would work fantastic, and even vegetables would work good, especially if you do some succession planting. That is, plant not all your lettuce on the same day so that you have this giant harvest day, but instead plant a seed every day for 10 or 20 days, and that way, if you get held up late at work and one head of lettuce doesn't get harvested at the right time, well, you only lose one or two instead of an entire crop. Dog doesn't look so majestic when he's got a big old honking piece of drool hanging out of his mouth. The final tip that I have for you, if you're planning on homesteading, one more thing you want to consider: the halftime flush. Have you ever heard of the halftime flush? We have a beautiful stream across the street. I wish it was on our property. It would be so nice for the ducks to have their own water. So the halftime flush. The theory is that at the super big game, during that moment when the game is over, but Justin Timberlake hasn't started singing yet, everybody gets up and at that moment, when a million people are flushing their toilets, they need to make sure there's enough water in the city storage to handle that sudden burst of activity. All of a sudden it needs more water than it ever needed before. Okay, this has nothing to do with toilets or flushing. The point is, things go wrong on the homestead. There are days where suddenly a lot more is required of you than is on normal days. If you have a full-time job, but you still want a homestead, don't get so many animals and so many plants that every day you're at maximum capacity. Because things do go wrong. And when they go wrong, you're gonna need more time to take care of the problems. Make sure that every day you do your morning routine and you have time to spare and energy to spare. Because you still have to go to work every day. That way, when you come out in the morning and your cow is sick, or you've got a dead chicken, or there's plants that need extra care, if something is going wrong, there'll be a little extra time already allotted for you to care for your big problem without getting fired. That's the big idea here. Make sure that your homesteading life and your work life don't conflict, because in the end, if they conflict, the more important one will win. And feeding your family is more important. You're feeding your family from your homestead. Paying bills at the end of the day is pretty important, because if you're thrown in jail, yeah, you're not gonna be able to homestead in jail. The point is, if the two conflict, your job's gonna win. You might wish you could do more on your homestead, and maybe someday you can, but for now, you can still homestead. Just don't take on too much, be reasonable, remember the points we talked about, and get started. Don't let a job stop you from homesteading. If you like this video, be sure to sign up to our email list. YouTube does not share all our videos with our subscribers. There are 30,000 subscribers and most of our videos get about 2,000 views. But every Friday, if you're on that email list, I will send you all our videos and all our podcasts. Okay, standing in the river. I just realized there's a hole in my boot. I gotta get out of here before I get frostbite. Beautiful down here, isn't it? Woo.